long experience now, over 5 years of use of social tools that have been very widely adopted, if you will, what people call the consumer side, meaning on a personal level. As individuals, people have adopted these tools. The Facebook, Twitters, MySpaces of the world. Businesses are only now starting to adopt these technologies, but it's kind of like what they call like the Cambrian explosion. We see all these different products with slightly different orientations towards how people might use social tools of this sort in the enterprise. So it's a time of great turmoil, huge questions that business people are asking. But at the same time, even though those questions aren't really answered in any significant, sort of conclusive way, people are moving ahead anyway. It's this real pioneering spirit, and people are trying all sorts of things, and these technologies are evolving extremely quickly at the same time.
Of workplace and workspace today has changed dramatically. We are in the second decade of the 21st century, and many of the workspaces as we know them were built in the 20th century. It's entirely different. Workspace today is no longer a place you go, it's a thing you do, as well as a space that is really your digital media space. There's an entirely different dimension, which is a digital space, that is actually the real workspace today. So the question for the physical environment is not just how you reprogram it and how you readapt it and you change it, but how do you create an environment that's really an extension of your digital space, not the other way around.
The future is distributed, so it's not happening across the board, but it's happening more and more in some organizations informally. Like the smartphone break is the new cigarette break. People go out and check Facebook or Twitter. And in some or other organizations, there is more of an effort to make this collaboration happen inside the walls, inside the environment.
Too often I find that organizations are focused on all the peripheral activities. We could be collaborating, we could be finding one another, but we've lost sight of the fact that just learning from one another, listening to what each person says and being able to build on that knowledge so we can create something better than any of us can do alone is just too often left out of the conversation. And it's so easy to forget that when we talk about the brand or the building or the space or the client. It's not saying that those things aren't important, but they begin with the conversation. They begin with a connection between two people and then 4 people and 12. And then we can really start getting a lot of that wisdom and good stuff rising to the top, but it has to begin between people.
So we've had a lot of things that are motivated by dollars or performance or numbers or things like that. And I think game dynamics are going to start coming into play. We're seeing them already emerge on the social web as something that individuals are responding to. And I think as businesses we can embrace that healthy kind of way to compete or to earn achievements that are not necessarily tied to compensation, but more tied to recognition and a sense of innate accomplishment. I know it's a warm, fuzzy kind of topic, but I think businesses will start to get there.
There's evidence that suggests a very interesting correlation between two things. If people make a list of things that they're trying to accomplish and share that with a close circle of other friends, and then as they accomplish those tasks, they announce it, and people give them feedback, not necessarily, huge kudos or anything, but just acknowledge that I know that you've accomplished that. That's good, thank you. The people doing the listing and the mentioning of their tasks feel good about themselves. They have a sense of happiness, that time seems to pass more quickly, right? And so their productivity goes up. They feel better about work. You can look at the cognitive side of it, and that means that they're getting more oxytocin in their brain. That means they start to trust the people they work with more, right? The whole host of wonderful second order effects start to happen.
It's increasingly rare that the workday is just 9 to 5. Work happens, throughout the day, and sometimes on weekends as well, you know, and so, and that flexibility has to also work both ways, where when you're actually at the office, or in some cases you're not on site, you're blurring some of your activities a bit more as well.
One of the hopeful things is that we are seeing emerge on the network a type of scaled, large organization that works very efficiently, that does things that people literally would not have thought possible. Wikipedia being the best example, but Linux also. A group of disorganized, unorganized, you know, in the traditional sense, people putting together what is arguably the world's greatest operating system. This is not really, doesn't fit into the old model. I think that is one of the elements of hope, that the technology has created an environment in which some of the most fundamental things about hierarchical organizations now have not only been challenged, but we've proven that we can do vast projects collaboratively outside of that hierarchy within a networked model of leadership.
So in an organization that is adopting these social tools, everybody is a leader to some extent. It's just very distributed. In an organization that relies on social tools, then that leadership has a direct corollary with the number of people that are following what you're recommending, following what you say, and who believe that you're an authoritative voice on a topic.
Hierarchy came in an age when there wasn't a high level of education, there was a lot of unknowns, and somebody had to be ultimately responsible. I think we have tools that make the transaction costs of a lot of that organization strongly diminished, but the cultural legacy of that hierarchy is still there. That fear-based control is still very prevalent. It's prevalent in our education systems. I think there's got to be a lot to change, or a really strong desire to change.
There might become a time where there's some young person somewhere who's going to get an MBA, who's going to have gone through that experience and realize that a structure for work could be allowing people to do what they're really passionate about, and then form like an enterprise around that, like the follow your curiosity industries. You can imagine this kind of industry, which is basically like the kind of globalization of the Me Too generation. Like, I can do this stuff, I can create and I can produce things that are of value to people, but it's not one person's vision. People might point back to like YouTube in 30 years and say like that was the start of it, when people realized that you can form a business around people doing what they enjoy, or what makes them laugh, or what drives and motivates them politically or socially, or these kinds of things.
People will increasingly decide for themselves who they want to follow in their business. Who do they think is the most authoritative person about, you know, what we should do with the product? It might not be the VP of product. It might be this sales engineer who actually is really onto something and people want to listen to him, and he has a lot of authority, because he says smart things, not because he has a title. That kind of stuff is very troublesome to organizations that aren't ready for it. And it's almost inevitable if you have an open follower model, that people get to choose who they follow.
Think about, you know, what value you want to bring to the workplace. It may be multiple workplaces, that you don't have to have just one hat in the future. And a lot of people, kind of still have this, I've got to train for a particular career, I've got to live in that career, I'm kind of stuck in that world. It's not true anymore. I mean, one of the choices you can make is that you want to be stuck in a locked-in job, right? And use the tools and the techniques that your bosses tell you how to do, right? Or you can say, I'm, smart and agile and adaptive, and I can look at these tools and I can figure out ways of getting value out of them. I can sell that value to places, and I can be, kind of my own person in terms of the workplace.
People use technology to mean anything that was invented after they turned 13. Things that they grew up with, that's not technology, that's just the world. It's something that's new, that's technology. So that means that for people, the millennials growing up now, a lot of the things that you and I might have thought of as being technology are just everyday experiences for them. One thing that you really have to keep in mind, one thing that's really important to remember, is that when you look ahead and you see big changes happening, Moore's Law, or the emergence of artificial intelligence, sort of go down the list of really big, scary changes, they don't happen overnight. And in fact, they happen in a way that we look ahead and it looks really scary because we're mentally jumping from here to there. But in reality, we progress day by day, moment by moment. And by the time those technologies or changes emerge, they're kind of boring at that point.
For companies to thrive in the world we're moving into, increasingly mobile, increasingly global, increasingly connected, for all that to work, there has to be a high degree of openness. And for that to work, it is a cultural shift. And it is, however, exactly that cultural shift that social tools are designed to make.